Hello.
Yes, sir. We can see the PDF.
Okay, okay. So today we'll be discussing about explosion. Okay. So for any sort of fire, okay,
Yes, sir.
it needs three elements. Okay, oxygen, ignition source, and fuel. It is also known as fire triangle. So these are the basic needs for a fire to happen. Okay, so ignition source includes different type of heat or different type of spark that can ignite a fire or explosion. Okay, so these are the content that we will be covering. What is explosion? Its definition, different type of explosion, detonation, deflagration, dust explosion, vapor cloud explosion, bleed, effects of explosion. We will cover a case study. Then finally we will cover what are the hazard managements that we can follow for fire or explosion. Okay. So what is the explosion? If there will be any fuel or gas while releasing getting expanded rapidly and its pressure also getting changed rapidly, at that point if there will be any violent rapid combustion, we will call it an explosion. Okay, so it's the result of rapid combustion with a sudden violent change of pressure. If there will be any leakage and there will be a combustion, and it's also there will be a rapid change in pressure which releases a violent energy, we can call it an explosion. Okay, so explosion is a sudden and violent release of energy in a rapid and uncontrolled manner. Also, its effect is dependent on the rate at which the energy is released. Okay, so after this we will be getting the definition. What is the difference between explosion and fire? Okay, so the release of energy may be appear as heat, light, sound, or mechanical shock. Okay, so these are the form. If there will be any explosion, we can have any of them. Like we can have a heat or light, sound, or even a mechanical shock we can get from an explosion. So what is the basic difference between an explosion and a fire? So it's the only difference is the rate at which energy is released. So in case of fire, the rate of energy release is very slow, whereas in case of explosion, the rate of energy release is very high, and it occurs like very in a sudden manner. Okay, sudden release of high energy, so we can call it an explosion. So recently there was a violent explosion in port of Beirut, a capital of Lebanon. Okay, you might have seen this video. Just a moment. Yeah. So recently there was a violent explosion in the port of Beirut, capital of Lebanon. It was heavily circulated in WhatsApp and other social media platform. You might have seen this video. Okay. So let's see what an explosion looks like. Okay, so like it's a rapid explosion with a high energy release with a very short span of time. Then what are the different type of explosion? Detonation, deflagration, dust explosion, vapor cloud explosion, and boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion, or in short form we can call it as BLEEV. Okay, so now we'll start with detonation. So, when a decomposition reaction or combination reaction releases a lot of energy in a very short span of time, an explosion may occur. It is an explosion like the detonation. It is an explosion with a resulting shock wave moving at a speed more than the speed of sound. Okay, so if whatever the shock wave coming from an explosion, if its speed will be more than the speed of sound, then we can call it as a detonation. Okay, it should be in a unreacted medium. Detonation is extremely rapid, self-propagating decomposition, often explosive. accompanied by high pressure or temperature waves. It also, when we'll characterize detonation or a different type of explosion, we can consider it as a high explosive rather than like if we compare with the deflagration. Deflagration comes under low explosive. Okay, we'll see it later. So what are the different like source of ignition? So it can be due to a mechanical impact or even friction or heat can cause a detonation. Okay, so the detonation are characterized by highly turbulent combustion, very high flame speed that can go up to 9 km per second, and extremely high pressures. Then comes deflagration. So in case of a detonation, the speed will be higher than the speed of sound, but in case of a deflagration, the burning speed will be lower than the speed of sound. Okay, the resulting shockwave moving at a speed less than the speed of sound in an unreacted medium, and also it is characteristic of a low explosive. It may be ignited by contact of flame, spark, impact, or friction. The energy transfer from a reaction zone to the unreacted zone is accomplished through ordinary transfer process such as heat and mass transfer. Like it's a very slow process, and it does not take. It takes a little bit more time compared to detonation. But in case of detonation, it's a very rapid movement, and with a very short span of time, the energy is being released to a distant place. Okay. So a deflagration is an ordinary fire such as gas stove, burning wood or paper, everyday fire, or most controlled explosion are example of deflagration. Like everyday, whatever you are doing, like everyday fire or paper, burning of wood, gas stove, all these things are comes under deflagration. Okay. Then we'll come to dust explosion. So what is a dust explosion? A combustible dust is any fine material that has the ability to catch fire and explode when mixed with air. Okay, so a dust explosion is the rapid combustion of fine particles. So there will be like different combustible fine particles in the atmosphere, in the surroundings. So when they will be getting any fire, they can create an explosion. Okay. Often but not always in an enclosed location. It can be in a confined base, or it can be in an unconfined space. Okay, dust explosion can occur where any dispersed powder combustible material is present in high enough concentration. So for this, what is the basic requirement? It should be in a high concentration in a confined or unconfined space. Okay, in the atmosphere. So what are the conditions required? There should be a fuel to burn. In this case, the combustible dust. The dust is suspended in the air at a sufficient high concentration. If it will not be in sufficient high concentration, there is less probable of the explosion to happen. Okay, so there has to be high concentration of the combustible dust for the dust explosion, and oxygen to sustain the fire, and heat from an ignition source, or what are the different like ignition source, like it can be a spark. Okay, so then it can be a dust explosion. Okay, so for dust explosion, we see at the very beginning, we see three elements are needed for a fire, that is called a fire triangle. But in case of a dust explosion needs two additional elements known as the dust pentagon. All these like the three elements in the fire triangle, and two other need for a dust explosion. We call it a dust pentagon. Okay, so what are there in a fire triangle? Like ignition, oxygen, or fuel. Okay, but now in case of a dust explosion, we have to have two other elements such as dispersion and confinement. Okay, it can be confinement or unconfinement, but it should be a space. Okay, so it's an important thing. Dust pentagon, maybe you will be asked in some exam, like a assignment or something. What's a dust pentagon? What's its characteristics, and wherever it has been used? All these things you need to explain. Okay. So confinement means the dust is an enclosed or limited space. This restriction allows pressure to build up, increasing the likelihood of an explosion. explosion. Okay. So what are the ignition source? A cloud of dust within its flammable concentration limit will not burn unless sufficient energy is provided to ignite it. Possible ignition source include open flames such as welding, cutting, or some fire from a matchbox. Then hot surfaces like dryers or heaters, heat from a mechanical impact, electrical discharge can also create the ignition, and the burning dust. Okay, all these are the source of ignition for a dust explosion. Then comes vapor cloud explosion. Okay, so liquefied gases and volatile liquids can very easily change phase from liquid to vapor if exposed to ambient conditions. The vapor of these products are heavier than air, which implies that they can tend to settle down close to the ground. When the quantity of vapor generated is large and it accumulates, such accumulates are known as a vapor cloud. Okay, so like different liquefied gas or volatile liquids, they can form a vapor cloud wherever they will be stored. Okay, so a vapor cloud explosion occurs when a large quantity of flammable vapor or gas is released, mixes with air, and is subsequently ignited. So whatever this vapor cloud it is formed, if it will be given a source of ignition, then it can form a explosion, and we call it a vapor cloud explosion. Okay. So what are the, like, how it could be possible? Okay, this could be due to failure of a pipe. Suppose if there will be a leakage in a pipe, overflow or leak from a storage vessel or tank. If there will be any leakage, and it will form a vapor cloud, and if there will be a source of ignition, then it can be a vapor cloud explosion. Also leakage of LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, or hydrogen, and all these can form a vapor cloud, and subsequently if there will be a ignition, source of ignition, then it can be a vapor cloud explosion. Okay, so in general there are two type of vapor cloud explosion. One is a confined vapor cloud explosion, and the other one is unconfined vapor cloud explosion. Okay, so a confined vapor cloud explosion occurs in a confined space such as vessel, pipe, and buildings, whereas a unconfined vapor cloud explosion occurs in an open area. The peak pressure of confined vapor cloud explosion are much higher than that of a unconfined vapor cloud explosion. Okay, so this is also an like important like short question. Like you can be asked like what are the different type of vapor cloud explosion and their characteristics. So like it can be a short question. So just mark a like note of that. Then comes bleave or boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. Okay, the phenomenon of bleave is very different from vapor cloud explosion. Bleave involves sudden violent rupture of a container that holds superheated liquid. Okay, so in the case of a bleave, suppose there is a tank or pipe where these liquids will be formed, and there will be any source of heat, like it can be whatever the heat source. Okay, so if the material or the liquid inside the tank or inside the pipe gets heated, then its phase changes. There will be a formation of vapor, and all this vapor will create a very high pressure on that tank or pipe. So as a result, there will be a rupture of the container, and it creates an explosion that we call a bleave. Okay. So the cause of rupture of a pressurized container may be either due to the thermal stress, or due to mechanical stress, or due to structural fault. Okay, it can be anything, like it can be the pressure can be created due to a thermal stress, or even mechanical stress will also work for that. Also if there will be a structural fault, means there will be any fault, there will be a problem in the container, like the pipe or the container tank. If there will be a fault, then also bleave can happen. Okay. However, a majority of bleave cases have occurred due to overheating of pressurized containers. So most of the time it is due to the overheating of the like the container. Whatever the material inside it, it gets expanded, and it creates a rupture in that. Okay. So at the bottom there are like three pictorial diagram you can see. Suppose in a container there is a material. Okay. Then it gets some sort of thermal stress, so it forms like vapor, it gets pressurized, and as a result, it expands. With the expanding nature of the vapor, there will be a rupture in the tank, and subsequently it can be a explosion. Okay, so in case of a bleed, suppose in the container the liquid or the gas that is present, if it will not be flammable, okay, then in that case maybe there will not be explosion, but there will be a like rapid rupture of the container. It may not get ignited, but there will be a rapid rupture. Okay, and the material or the vapor, it will come out. But if it will be flammable, then definitely there will be an explosion. Like when the vapor pressure will come out, rupturing that container, there will be a ignition, and it will be an explosion. Okay, so in our day-to-day life, we prepare our food in pressure cooker. Okay, so if there will be any leakage in pressure cooker, then the same concept, it comes under bleed. Okay, so inside the pressure cooker also we provide a thermal heat to that, and it gets pressurized. So if there will be a fault, or there will be any problem, and if it bursts, then it comes under bleed, like the boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. Okay, so what happens after explosion? Okay, what are the aftermath, the effect, the result? Okay, so every time there will be a shock wave. Okay, when a pressurized wave moves faster than the local speed of sound in atmospheric air, it is a shock wave. And when a shock wave in open air and combined with wind wave is called blast wave. Okay, so every time with the explosion there will be a shock wave that travels faster than the sound, the speed of sound, and if it is combined with the wind wave, it is called a blast wave. Okay, so most of the time this blast wave is like harmful to most of the time, if the explosions, most of the effects of the explosion are due to the blast wave. Okay, so in an open atmosphere, higher magnitude of blast wave results in higher travel of the shock wave. Okay, so in the image you can see there is a formation of shock wave after the explosion. Okay, then what are the effects of explosion? So in the previous class we have a little bit of briefing about this. What are the effects? So there are different type of effects due to the explosion, such as blast damage, that can be categorized in primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary effect. Then comes the thermal effect, then ground shock and crater. Okay. So blast damage or effect on people. So these are being characterized in different categories: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. So what comes under primary? So it's damage of head, most probably ear, lung, and organ injuries from overpressure blast wave. So if the blast wave will be of high pressure, and it will damage, like most of the time it will damage ear, lung, and organ injuries. So it comes under primary injuries. Okay, and what comes in secondary injuries? So whenever there will be explosion, there will be different debris material, okay, or fragments of different materials. So they will cause some sort of injuries, okay, fractures or soft tissue damage in human body. All this comes under secondary injury. And what comes in tertiary injury results from being thrown by blast wave. Suppose, like you might have seen in some movies, like if there will be an explosion, like people will be thrown away with that blast wave. Okay, and if there will be head injuries including multiple fractures, all these things will be coming under tertiary injuries. And what else remaining? All comes under quaternary injuries, like small burns or head injuries, or exaggeration of pre-existing medical conditions. Suppose you will having some pre-medical condition, and it will be enhanced by this explosion, then it comes under quaternary injury. Okay, then thermal effect. So whenever there will be an explosion, it generates a tremendous amount of heat and fire. Okay, hot gases radiate strongly, particularly for shooting explosion like bleed. So we'll consider a case like the nuclear explosion. So there will be a fireball with every nuclear explosion. So these fireballs cause injury, most of the skin burns and secondary ignition of structure. Okay, this can be harmful for your skin. It will burn your skin. Also, it can cause as a secondary ignition of different structure. Okay. Also, with every explosion, there will be a mushroom cloud. A mushroom cloud is a mushroom-shaped cloud of debris. It will be of debris or different smoke-like material and usually condensed water vapor resulting from a large explosion. Okay, the effect is most commonly associated with a nuclear explosion. This type of mushroom shaped are mostly they are being seen in the case of a nuclear explosion, but any sufficiently energetic detonation can also form this type of mushroom cloud. Not only the nuclear explosion, any other sort of explosion with a little bit of more energy can form this type of mushroom cloud. Then ground shock and crater. So in most of the explosion, like earthquake type of some event will be there, but it will be of a very minimal scale and it will not that much harmful. Okay. And what is a crater? So if there will be any explosion, it will just like remove the material, the surrounding materials. So material is ejected from the surface of the ground by an explosive event at or immediately above or below the surface. So whatever the material will be present near to that explosion, it will remove everything. So it forms a crater. Okay, so one of the good example of this crater is Sedan Placer crater. It is present in Nevada National Security in US. So they have done this nuclear explosion test in Sedan under the, like, there is a program called Placer program. So they have conducted a series of nuclear explosion tests. So it is a picture of that Sedan Placer crater that is in Nevada. Then we'll see a case study. Okay, so we'll see a fire accident at IOCL, Indian Oil Corporation Limited, Hazira Terminal. So this Hazira Terminal, it is present in Gujarat. So in 2013 there was a huge explosion that occurred at 5th January. And what are the casualties? 3 deaths, 3 people are died out of that, and the time required to capture this fire was around 21 hours, and the value of property lost in that explosion was around 35 crores. Okay, so what are the types this explosion comes under? It comes under a bleed, vapor cloud explosion, and detonation. Okay, so now we'll see this fire accident at Hazira Terminal. So we'll see a video. So it is a CCTV footage of the IOCL Hazira Terminal. Let's see how the explosion happened. It is a second view of the same explosion. See how people are running out of that place. And okay, so this was the explosion there. So it is one of the, like, huge explosion that happened in IOCL, Indian Oil Corporation Limited. Okay, so Hazira is a so-called white oil terminal. It has 9 tanks, like 5 for petrol storage and 4 for diesel storage, and the tank that got ignited, it was a diesel tank. Okay, it has contained 55 lakhs of liter of diesel. Okay, so it was a huge amount of diesel that got ignited. And what can be the possible root cause for this ignition or this explosion? Okay, so previously on December 31st, 2012, they have put some like pontoons, like in the next slide we will be covering what is a pontoon. So they have put a some they have done some repairing of a pontoons in a tank, the tank number 4, and within 1 month there was a leakage in that pontoon. So some people are working in that like they were just trying to fix the leakage. So at that time there was some mishap and this explosion happened. Somehow it got ignited and this explosion happened. Okay, so the thing is that even they have put the pontoons in December, but within 1 month, like there was some leakage. So there must be some sort of like casual work or some sort of irresponsible work in that place. Okay, so all these things we will cover in hazard management. What are the procedures, how we can avoid some situations like an explosion. Okay, so we'll be covering all this in its hazard management. Okay, so as I mentioned, there is a floating roof, as its name implies, actually floats on the surface of the liquid in the tank. So in every tank there will be a floating surface within that. So within the moving up and down of the liquid level, the pontoon it floats. Okay, we'll see another video. Have a proven. Okay, see, this is the pontoon. Okay, so whenever it will be removing like the liquid out of that, then the pontoon will come down, and simultaneously if we will increase the level, then the pontoon will go up. Okay, so the incident was due to a leakage in that pontoon. So some person was repairing that, and at that moment it got ignited, and it caused this explosion. I'm not going into detail about this pontoon. Like it, you just know like it's a floating roof inside that tank. So in somewhere here, like there was a leakage. Okay, and that person was trying to fix the leak, and at that moment this mishap happened and it got ignited. Okay, so seepage in pontoons originated hydrocarbon vapor which mixed with air and created hydrocarbon mixture in the pontoons. This mixture getting some source of ignition from acts of worker attempting to repair the leakage, got this ignition, and subsequently there was an explosion in that Hazira terminal. Okay, so if you will be asked the case study of Hazira terminal, will you be able to answer it, like if there will be like three mark question or 5 mark question, will you be able to explain it, the Hazira terminal incident? Hello? Hello? Okay, actually, this class should be like a two-way discussion. It is not like I am the only one who will be just giving you the information. I will be providing whatever I want, and you will not be like attentive in that class. It should not be a good class. It will not be a good class. Okay, it should be a two-way discussion. I will give some input. You will also provide some input from your side. Otherwise, how can I know it is effective? Are you getting my point? Okay, leave. Okay, then comes fire and explosion hazard management. Okay, so the fire and explosion hazard management means actions, procedures, and policies used by organization and individual to prevent the occurrence and to limit the explosion to unplanned fires and explosions. Okay, so what are the actions or procedure or the policies that needs to be followed to control the fire or explosion? It comes under hazard management. So there are different processes or different stages. Okay, so stage one assess fire and explosion hazards for planned operation. Like you have to assess what are the cause of fire and explosion. Then in stage two, identify need for site specific. If there will be a particular site that needs a like separate monitoring of fire and explosion preventive plan, then you have to do that. Then evacuate and choose fire and explosive control measures. If there will be any fire or explosion, then evacuate the place immediately and choose fire, like what the type of the fire, and explosion control, what like measures, what are the controlling measures that you can take for such a fire. It comes in stage 3. Then in stage 4, develop and implement fire and explosion prevention plan. Whatever the plan you have prepared, just implement that to control the fire and explosion. And in the stage 5, further monitor and effectiveness and revise process as needed. Further, after controlling the situation, further monitor it in an effective manner and revise the process time to time, so that you will be aware of the situation. Okay. Then what are the corporate roles? Okay, so as a corporate, they have to raise awareness among their various workers about the safety of fire and explosion, train personnel about the fire and explosion hazard management, establish and implement a fire and explosion hazard management process, assess competency and ensure compliance. Okay, at the same time, what are the role of supervisor of complete fire and explosion training? So like in general, we at our university we don't have such roles, but in if you go to some foreign universities, they have all these processes. Okay, so every time, if either if you will be a student or a faculty, you will be going through all this process. Like you will be trained for fire and explosion. Okay, then there will be implement hazard ID and control. Like if there will be any hazard, then what is its type and its control. Challenge those, like if someone will not working properly in a safety manner, then you have to make them correct. Encourage reporting of unsafe work. Okay, if there will be like you have to encourage people so that they will be reporting if there will be a unsafe work, or there will be unsafe situation, or in particular site, if there will be unsafe practice of work, then they need to report it to the supervisor. These are the role of supervisor. Okay, and what are the role of workers? Complete fire and explosion training, carry out fire and explosion preventive plans, procedures and controls, report fire and explosion hazard, assist in experienced co-workers, challenge those not working safely, and report unsafe work. These are the responsibility of worker. Then training and requirement. So basic level of training to all the workers, like expanded fire training and critical risk factor, their control, communication. If there will be a situation of emergency, then how the communications, effective communication should be there. All these things can be trained to workers. Then what are the training on advanced scale, like supervisor or management level of people, how the training will be. So additional details on fuel, oxygen source or energy sources, fire and explosion preventing plan development, management of change. Then corporations may train staff internally or with the assistance of knowledgeable third parties. Okay, so they time to time they should be organizing some events where the some like trained personnel or a non-organization who is dealing this sort of safety training. They can be have some workshops or some other type of event where they will be trained for their worker and the other supervisors or management level people. Okay, so these are the requirement, training requirements. Then hazard management procedure, almost like in little bit we have already covered this. So first identify the hazard, then assess the risk, then select and implement the controls, then finally monitor effectiveness of the control. Okay. Then risk assessment. Okay, so time to time we need to like assess the risk. When you have identified the hazard, you need to assess the risk created by each hazard. The risk is the likelihood that the hazard will cause injury, illness or disease in the way that it is used for occurs in the workplace. Okay, so there everywhere in workplace there will be a likelihood of event like any risk or hazard. Okay, so based on its likelihood, like if it is extremely or high risk or medium risk or low risk, and what are the occurrence like probable, possible, unlikely. Based on that, we have to prepare a risk assessment. Okay, if it comes under like high alert, then we have to be some like prepared plan for that the hazard. Okay, then hazard control. So it is not enough just find and rate the hazard. So simply it's not enough for it will be rating it's like high alert or caution or safe. It is not good enough. So for that we have to control. We have to make some preparedness to control the hazard. Control the hazard before the injury or illness of people due to this hazard. Okay, so there are different type of hierarchy of controls like elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls. Then at the end it is called PPE or personal protective equipment. Okay, so in elimination, what are the things? Okay, so elimination, like wherever you can eliminate some problem. Okay, suppose there is a workplace where a person needs to carry a heavy weight. Okay, so that can be eliminated by using a forklift. Okay, so in that case, his like health, or if a person will be taking a heavy weight like beyond his caliber, then maybe he will damage himself. So this can be eliminated by using a forklift. Okay, so it comes under elimination. Then same as substitution. If there will be any substitution for that, suppose you are working in a chemical lab. Okay, and you know the chemical that you are working is hazardous, so you have to find a substitution solution for that. If that can be done with some other chemical also which is less hazard, then you should go with the less hazardous material compared to the high hazardous material or high hazard chemical that you are working on. So it comes under substitution. Then engineering control or isolation. Okay, so if there will be any unsafe work, so by engineering control you can isolate the unsafe place. Okay, so if there will be any machine and if there will not be any machine guard, so engineering controls comes under this. So where you will be able to put some machine guard for that machine, so that less injury will be there. Okay, and also if there will be a particular workplace, you can create different type of fences, so that if there will be any mishap, it will be confined in that place only. So isolation or engineering control, all these things comes under engineering controls and isolation. Then in fourth stage it comes to administrative control. Okay, so most of the thing it comes under monitoring up to notice or different type of training. All these things comes under administrative control. Then finally the PPE or the personal protective equipment, where you will be equipped with like gloves or helmet or safety shoes. All these things will be you will be taking for PPE. Okay, for the safe doing of some work. Okay, but remember, PPE is the least effective, whereas in the hierarchy elimination at the top, and it is the most effective elimination. Okay, so suppose if you will have only like gloves, mask or safety shoes or helmet, so hardly it will be controlling any hazard. Okay, but in the case of elimination, you can eliminate whatever the hazard you are seeing, you can eliminate that. Okay, so it is the most effective, and PPE is the least effective in the hierarchy of control. Okay, then evaluate, monitor and review. So it is important to know if your risk assessment was complete and accurate. It is also essential to be sure that changes in the workplace have not introduced new hazards. So if there will be any change in situation in workplace, okay, so if the new change creates some new hazard or something, you have to monitor that, and also time to time you have to monitor, evaluate, and prepare your reports, and this will improve the safety measures of that workplace. Okay, your records, you have to maintain all these things in record that will reflect you have conducted a good hazard review, determine the risk of those hazards, implemented control measures suitable for the risk, and reviewed and monitor all hazards in the workplace. Okay, all if you will be maintaining a record, all these things will be reflected in that. So it's always a good practice to maintain a records of all these safety events. Okay, so this is all about explosion and what are the its measures, and we also covered a case study, different type of explosion. Okay, so one thing I'll tell you, if sometimes I'll feel like we need to go through a like exam or something like this, then there can be a surprise test. I'll not give you like prior information about the test. Simply I can come in the class and I'll give you these are the questions you need to answer in next 30 minutes or next 1 hour. Okay, so there can be a surprise test also. So be ready for that. Whatever I am like providing the whatever the information